Blah.
When the Sleepy Hollow International Film Festival was setting up, I live right next to the Sleepy Hollow, like Sleepy Hollow from The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, which is like the coolest town ever. And Andy can attest. Andy's been there. He's sort of seen some of the vibe out there. They were setting up in the Terrytown, what is it called? God damn it, the Terrytown Playhouse, whatever the hell it is. It's an old timey sort of theater. And a bunch of guys from LA, really, really great guys. Michael McCartney and Matt. What the hell is his last name? Matt with last name with an L. Oh my God, this is gonna bother me. Matt LeVay? No, not Matt LeVay. Whatever. In any case, he has La 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 Records. I think he has like a soundtrack business and whatnot. Great people. And they put together the Sleepy Hollow International Film Festival, and they had some really cool programming. One of the things that they had worked out was something that's super duper rare. It is, it's something that was written and directed by the team behind Reanimator. It was Stuart Gordon and Dennis Paoli. Is that how you say his last name?
Dennis Paoli. That's right.
Dennis Paoli. Okay, good.
You got it.
It was those two. I'm sure there was a bunch more on the team, and not to forget Jeffrey Combs himself, who brings Edgar Allan Poe to life. And Stuart has tragically passed, but before he died, he was trying to get it made as a movie. They were trying to get it off the ground, trying to get it made as a movie. Jeffrey Combs had played Edgar Allan Poe in a Stuart Gordon Masters of Horror episode as well, which was separate, which was a separate sort of situation thing. But eventually it all synthesized into Nevermore, which is a one-man show about Edgar Allan Poe, right? And they brought that to the Sleepy Hollow International Film Festival, and Andy happens to be Jeff. What exactly? I don't want to misspeak here. What exactly is your affiliation in this realm with Jeffrey Combs and that scenario?
Me and my wife have been doing his makeup for Nevermore since 2009. It's been a long time.
Yeah, so you've been involved with it for like I think it started
day
around
one.
then, right?
Day one.
Oh,
day one.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Andy has actually been, he's a part of that team that helped Jeffrey Combs bring Edgar Allan Poe to life. And in the sense that in order to partially bring him back from the dead, and I'm talking very loosely like this because I will describe what my experience was watching this.
He's Poe.
He's got a, yeah. Oh, I know he's Poe. I know he's Poe. I know he's Poe.
That's him.
What is amazing though is like, they really make him up. They really make him up. He has to have like a prosthetic nose, and he's got his mustache and all his. Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. So I was just volunteering because there was this attitude of like, hey, if you think something's really cool, like try and get involved in some way, shape, or form. I'm a filmmaker, kind of, sort of dabbling around on the fest circuit here and there. And I was like, this is local and I want to be involved in some way, shape, or form. So I'm going to hit these guys up. So I emailed the team, Sleepy Hollow International Film Festival. They gave me a badge, a volunteer badge. I didn't really do much. I just sort of mucked around. Whatever they needed, I was there. If they wanted me to stand outside and pass out programs or whatnot, street traffic. It was happening in October in Sleepy Hollow, which is like, there's so much tourism around there. It's just like Salem. It's like Salem. So you get a lot of tourists. And that's where I bumped into Andy. I don't know. He was outside or something. We just started talking. That's you start talking to people. And that's do you remember?
I think I saw you sitting down in the theater. I may have saw you in your jacket, and I think it had maybe a Misfits patch or something. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but I think I saw something with music, and we started talking.
It was my shirt. You were probably, I was wearing a shirt of some kind. I don't know what it was, but I was probably wearing it on my shirt. And we started talking about the Misfits initially. And that's that's the beautiful thing about going to these fests. It's like, You know, a lot of people go to fests because they want to submit their films and they want those films to like do really well, and that's all good. You have to really decide like what kind of experience do I want to get out of going to a fest? And one of the experiences, you get to meet people. You can meet people, and you know, something might come of a meeting, and or nothing might come of a meeting, but you still get to like meet people and have like good times and whatnot. And so yeah, Andy and I just started really just shooting the shit. We were talking about, you know, Misfits, and this is before I started doing all this stuff online. But I was just like, oh yeah, man, Misfits, blah 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 blah. And we started, you know, to realize that there were some common threads. And then he was like, oh yeah, I'm the makeup artist of Jeffrey Combs. I was like, holy fucking shit, dude, Jeffrey fucking Combs, man. Because like, you know, like for me, and eventually you know, Andy introduced me to Jeffrey Combs. I got to meet him very briefly, just like a very quick hello, and he took my picture with him. And I'll tell you something, I've met all sorts of famous people, and I'm not saying that in any way, shape, or form like a humble brag or anything. I'm just saying I've met like people that are way more famous than Jeffrey Combs, and I just was not phased. It just was whatever. Meeting Jeffrey Combs, I was so nervous and tongue tied. I was breathless. I literally could not, because this guy, I think he's one of the greatest fucking living actors walking the planet.
Yeah, he's incredible.
I'm like, you know what it was? I felt so intimidated, and he didn't put off any sort of vibe of being intimidating at all. He's like the nicest, most like disarming type of guy. He sees that I'm tongue tied. He's like, oh, nice jacket you got there. And I'm like, thanks.
I remember that very clearly. Yeah, you know, it's like when I first met Jeff, he was just sitting there in the makeup chair. And how I got the gig was a friend of mine named Greg McDougall. He initially had the gig, and they did a test makeup. I wasn't there for the test makeup, but then he decided he didn't want to do it for whatever reason. I don't remember why. So he called my wife, who he's friends with, and at that time my wife was 20, right? We weren't even married yet. And so she was like, yeah, Andy, Greg just called me, wanted to know if I wanted this job, and it's working with a Stuart Gordon's for. I'm like, what? Okay, go on. Yeah, it's with Stuart Gordon for, you know, and there's an actor named Jeffrey Combs. I lost my shit. Like, it's crazy. And so like in my head, he's the dude from Frighteners, what's his name, Dauber or something like that.
He's Agent Dammers.
So he's Dammers, and he's Herbert West. I was expecting some kooky guy, but he's an actor. So when I meet him, he's like, "Hey, how's it going, Andy?" I'm like, "Oh, he's just a normal dude. He's a family man. You know, he's a family man. Really, really normal, highly intelligent, super smart. You know, he's very witty. But he was just a really nice guy. He's a really nice guy. We spent a lot of time traveling, gotten to know each other pretty well. He's like an uncle to me now at this point. He's cool. I saw him at Monster Palooza like 2 weeks ago, and he's talking to people. Then as soon as he sees me, he's like, "Andy!" He gives me a big hug. He like forgets about all the people he's talking to. He makes you feel special. He's cool. He's a great guy.
He really is something else.
Yeah, and he's something else.
Just being in his presence, it was amazing. It was really amazing. And you know what it is? It's just that like I revel in that dude's genius. I just think his genius in bringing that it's not just the Herbert West performance. He's been in a million movies. I mean, you literally, there's anything that Jeffrey Combs is in, you're gonna have fun watching. Like, I'll watch a movie just because Jeffrey Combs is in it. But there's something
don't bring up Fear.com, Fear.com or Faust.
First of all, it's funny. I just rewatched Faust about a year ago because I did an interview with Brian Usna, and I wanted to be well versed. I watched Initiation, Silent Deadly Night Part 4, which I had never seen before, which was directed by Usna as well. And I watched Faust, which I hadn't seen since like 1999.
2000, yeah.
Yeah, and I forgot. I will say this about those two performances in particular, Fear.com and Faust. Combs is slightly miscast in those roles. He's not.
He is, absolutely.
It's not really like I still, again, I will endlessly, and I just want to see Combs, just like I like Cage. I'll just watch Combs for the sake of watching Combs. It's like watching an athlete just fucking perform. However, those roles, was not the right. It didn't really connect. It wasn't.
He never deserves a cameo. He should always have a big major role in everything because he's so
agree.
Good.
Or
they just want to like put his name on the banner, starring Jeffrey Combs, and brings people in, pay him for a day, and then.
I will say this. His role in the Frighteners. He doesn't have a big major part. He's like a secondary antagonist, but he's got an arc. He steals every scene that he is in. He's magnetic. He's magnetic. You can't take your eyes off him in that role.
Yeah.
He's so it's one of my favorite performances.
It's perfect.
We've talked. We have seriously gushed about it on this channel so often that Agent Dammers in and he had he had spacers. He took spacers and put them behind his ears to make his ears stick out. Like he really brought so much, and Peter Jackson just allowed him to run wild with the character. And Combs knew what he was doing, man. He really did.
Yeah, they should have put him in Lord of the Rings. I don't know why they didn't.
Why not, man? Like he could have been an elf. He could have done, you know what he could have done? He could have done, Brad Dourif is great in his role, but I could have seen Combs in that role as well.
Easily. Oh my God. Easily.
He would have been so perfect for that role. Or, as some kind of orc, because what he likes to get into the makeup for like Star Trek and shit. So why not make him an orc or something? But in any case, he was there at the Sleepy Hollow International Film Festival to do a performance of Nevermore, and I'm not sure about this. I think this was the last time he's done it. He hasn't done one since. They're sporadic now, right? Like it's every once in a while he'll do it.
He's done one since then, and that was in actually when his last show he did was on a Star Trek cruise.
Really?
Back in 2000, actually, when we were on the cruise ship.
Yeah.
LA went into the state of emergency for COVID.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so it was like we were looking at our phones, going, "Fuck, LA's in state of emergency. Shit, are we stuck here?" And as we were docking. They let us off and we were fine, but the ship after us, they quarantined him for 2 weeks.
So he was one of the people that was stuck on that ship because that was in the news. Sherm, love you as well, man. Sherm Smoke, shout out to Sherm Smoke in the chat. So he was what? Because I remember hearing about that
he wasn't quarantined,
not Combs, but that people were
the cruise ship. Yeah,
that the cruise ships were like, you could not come to the mainland or whatever.
That was the ship after us, so we were that close to getting quarantined. Yeah,
that is so insane.
Yeah.
So one of the things that Andy, I guess, does from time to time, I guess the situation always varies, but if you are lucky enough, if you are in Andy's proximity, it is very possible that you can wind up with the nose itself. And I was very lucky to be the recipient of Jeffrey Combs's nose as Edgar Allan Poe, and it's right here.
There it is.
This is it.
The tissue.
I still in the tissue. I have never. It's funny. I was terrified. I wasn't sure what would happen to it if I didn't know if I had to preserve it in a certain way, or I just sort of held on to it, and it's held up okay. I think eventually it'll probably crumple, but
it's silicone, so it's gonna last forever.
Really?
Well, I mean, it's going to last. It's going to last, 50 years. It's not like foam latex where it goes into the sun, it gets UV rays on it, and starts to deteriorate. It's silicone. Yeah.
Maybe what I'll do is I'll have it encased in whatever lucite, whatever that stuff is, just so I could, I cherish this thing. This is Jeffrey Combs's nose when he becomes
Poe nose. Yeah, the Poe nose.
Poe nose. It becomes Edgar Allan Poe. Now, one thing that's incredible about this performance. So what is Nevermore? Nevermore is basically it's Poe gets on stage.
It's a one-man show,
yeah,
hour and a half long.
Right.
He essentially, it's like he's doing a reading for the audience. He's just talking about his life, but he progressively gets drunk throughout the performance.
Right.
And it's just Poe going off, warts and all, just riffing, just talking about his critics, and he's criticizing his critics, and it's just a roller coaster of emotions, and there was one performance back in it was like 2014.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember where it was, to be honest. Maybe Arkansas. I could be wrong. But his sister just died.
Oh.
His sister just died. And
oh my God.
He found out like hours before the show. So he channeled all that energy into that performance for an hour and a half.
Wow.
And the audience was in tears. Oh my God, he moved everybody. Like everyone was just like focused on him. Like he had the audience. And then I remember after the show, like my part of my job is not only doing his makeup, but to like kind of wrangle him a little bit. Like
sure,
I'll go buy him like sushi or whatever and bring it back to him to to eat, or Starbucks. And then as soon as the show's done, his throat's always hoarse. So I always bring like ice cold water. So as soon as the show was done, I ran downstairs to the dressing room, and he was like hunched over the makeup station, just bawling his eyes out, just crying like crazy. I felt so bad, but it was,
oh my God.
But the audience got a show. Holy shit, they got a show. That was one for the books.
The other thing, what's really puts it up. So first of all, does he change he tells one Poe story? Does he change that story from show to show, or is it always he always does the Telltale Heart?
It does Telltale Heart. Annabelle Lee.
Right.
The Raven. He does a few others. Like there was some I believe poems from like letters that he wrote. He does some of those that were like unfinished, that were like written to women. So like they dug pretty deep for that performance. So like they actually took like things he said in letters, like
right.
You have to be a real extreme Poe fan to know that. So
well, I remember was just how he, all he's doing is reciting a story. It's one guy on the stage and he's reciting the Telltale Heart, and the way he works himself into a frenzy. And then here's the other thing that's so brilliant about how everything works. He lights a candle. Mm. He has these prompts. Mm. And how do I know this? I don't actually know this. This is just what I observed from the audience. He has these prompts. The first prompt is he has a candle. And when the candle burns down a certain way, it tells him where he needs to be with the performance in some way, shape, or form. It's a brilliant cue. And then the other thing is he drinks the tea. His, right.
The whiskey.
The whiskey.
Rye whiskey. Yeah,
right.
Whiskey.
And on some level, it must allow him in his performance. He goes, okay, I drank a little bit more. Like something must, like it must help him get into that space as he's doing it. And when he gets down to the bottom, he knows it's like he can almost monitor, his intensity by how much he's drank. And it's just, I that's what I surmised when I was watching from the audience. And there was one part where he fell off the stage. I think he did it on purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously he did it on purpose, but it's just so, oh my God, I can't gush enough. And basically to sum it all up, what it really is, it's not a play and it's not a performance. What it actually is, and I really believe this in my heart of hearts, it's a seance. He's conducting a seance, and he really does channel the spirit of Edgar Allan Poe. So if you are fortunate enough to catch Nevermore, if it's happening anywhere near you, this is a treat. This is something that has, I guess not, but if it ever comes up that it is, do not hesitate in the least to go and check it out, because it will blow you away.
Because I saw him when I saw him 2 weeks ago. He told me, Andy, I think Nevermore has come to an end. I'm 65, 66 now, and I don't have the energy, and it's like climbing Mount Everest every time I have to do the show, because he's got to go for walks and jogs. He's got to get his conditioning up, and then he has to like recite the whole thing like constantly, like for weeks on end to like prep, because it's not something he just remembers off the cuff, you know. So,
of all the things that he's done in his career, I feel like from like an acting standpoint, I feel like that's like the zenith, you know. Like on all levels, like just the performance and prepping and everything that you're describing right now, for him on some level, it must be so fulfilling as an actor to do that show. I can't even imagine.
It's pretty crazy, because there was a lot of really well-known actors, you know, like horror actors, and like who was Robert Picardo, you know who that is?
Sounds familiar. Name sounds familiar.
He was like the gym teacher in Wonder Years, and he's in Star Trek.
Okay,
he's in a lot of things.
Yeah,
he's in a lot of things.
Yeah. I think I know your face. Yeah,
he was on the cruise, the Star Trek cruise, and afterwards, after the show was done, like him and a bunch of the other Star Trek actors, they came backstage and they were just like, oh, and these are like they're all Shakespearean trained actors, you know, they're like, they're top notch. And so they're just like, shit, like Jeff just like blew our minds. So like actors all bow to him after that show. They're just like, fuck, that's it.
They've got to shoot the movie, man. They've got to, like, if he's done, it has to be archived. It has to be like preserved in some way, shape, or form. It, like, they can't just let it. Yeah.
We actually did shoot something. Like,
oh yes. Oh, so something's been shot officially.
It has, but there was some weird technical issues with it. I mean, it exists.
That's good.
It's somewhere. It's on a hard drive somewhere, an external hard drive sitting somewhere. I don't know where, but it's somewhere. I know it exists. We shot it. I remember we did like makeup tests for it. We actually had the lights for it, but for whatever reason, it was really weird. Like when they would change the lights, it was too drastic, and his nose would look like a different color from his skin tone.
Oh no!
So,
but at least it got like it's preserved. It's documented.
It's documented. I think they've even released like little snips of it there, because they were trying to do like a Kickstarter for it back in like 2011 or 12. And
I remember that. I remember that. But what happened was, so wait a minute. So hold on a second. If you were there almost from the beginning, that means that you also worked with and knew Stuart Gordon on some level.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Oh my God. What the fuck was that like, dude?
You know, I was, of course, like starstruck when I met him, but for whatever reason, him and I could never connect. I don't know if it was like he just saw me as like a little young punk kid, but we just never connected on any level. It was hard, you know. But like I was always in awe of him. I respected him, and he was just always kind of like, I don't know if he wrote me off or something or what the deal was, but we just never hit it off very well. I don't know.
And so. Wow, that's so incredible. What an incredible experience. I mean, you really are.
My wife hit it off with him really well. They would travel together.
Really?
Here she is.
Hi there.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, she can't hear shit. Headset in, but yeah, Stuart would try to make her eat all kinds of gross stuff, like, you know, veal and like pate, and she'd be fucking barfing, you know, and Stuart's like, no,
monstrous.
But then he would give me good wine.
Then he'd get her good wine.
Yeah, he'd be like, try this wine. I'm like, sure, yes. So
do it.
Yeah. It was good.
Yeah, my wife used to travel with Jeff before I did. Then it got to a point where he was like, well, your wife's taking care of the kids now, so I want you to come with me. So I'm like, okay. So I took over for a little bit, but she was doing all the heavy lifting for quite a while.
Wow.
But she went on many airplane flights with Stuart and sat next to him, and she was reading like books about serial killers, and you know, Stuart like tried to pick her brain and was like, that could be a cool script. Like, you know, his brain was always being creative, you know. But I think the only time me and Stuart really connected was talking about like miniatures. He liked to paint miniatures.
Oh, did he really? That's so cool.
He did. So we talked about board games a little bit, and we had a good conversation, but most of the time he was just too busy or too his brain was elsewhere, you know. So but what was really cool though is after the show he would always come back and give Jeff critiques of the show, of like how we
really
performed. Yeah, and tell them what to do, what not to do next time, and Jeff was always like, yeah, you know, you're right. You're right. He'd always listen to Stuart and say, yeah,
what a partnership, man. All that time, all those years,
it was cool.
It's freaking crazy, dude.
There was another time Bernie Wrightson came backstage, and I was like, fuck, this is the man right here.
That is the man right there. Yeah, I mean, I have a book of his stuff right over there. Oh my god, one of my favorites.
And they were actually talking about doing a Nevermore comic, a graphic novel with him, you know, doing all the art for it. But he died like, I think 2 years later, and it never happened. So, but I got to hear the conversation. It was cool.
That was the thing about Stuart too, is that like, it's like he tried to do the Nevermore thing. I feel like that was around 2014, 2015, maybe something like that. And
man. Yeah.
And then that didn't pan out. I think I kicked in for that, actually. I think I might have donated to that campaign. And he was just like, fuck it, I'm done. I'm like I'm not trying to go out there and, you know, get stuff made anymore. And that's such a shame on some level.
Well,
it's a shame.
He's Stuart was kind of stubborn and wanted things done a certain way. And if you could have done his way, he just would rather not.
He was uncompromising. He was uncompromising. His last movie, I think, was Edmund in 2005. Actually, I'm not sure if he did anything after that.
Did you do King of? When was King of the Ants?
King of the Ants, which also sitting right over there, was right around that time. I think King of the Ants is 2003 or 2002. Oh,
okay.
And and then he did Edmund. And that was
which is the one with the girl that like crashes or like she hits the guy?
Sorry, that's his last movie. My mistake. That's from 2007 with Mina Cervini, and that's Stuck. It's based on a true story. That was his last movie.
Right, Stuck. Yeah,
he's just what a brilliant guy. Like just all the stuff, all that crazy stuff he would make. And you know, Castle Freak. Castle Freak was like a modern Universal horror film, man. You know, it was like that. You know, when I think of like what would be Universal horror in the 90s, Castle Freak, man.
That was it, yeah. But more adult.
But more adult.
Missing a dick. Yeah.
Missing a dick. But overall, what an incredible experience, and it was just an amazing. Yeah. I do hope that in some way, shape, or form, somebody comes along and maybe Shudder or something, and they go, "Hey, let's do Nevermore, make it happen, and get something going, so that way it's properly archived." Because there's a thing, you know, part of it was, hey, we're not going to film this because it's a performance, and you have to come and see the performance, or you don't see the thing. But if he's done, if he's hanging up the pantaloons and the nose, then, you know, why not? You know, hopefully.
Yeah,
who knows?
The nose and the outfit, they were actually from the Black Cat episode. The same mold to make the nose was from Black Cat. Yeah.
Very cool.
K&B was cool enough to do, I think they made the first, like 15 noses. That was the first run. It was like 15 shows originally.
Wow.
Because me and my wife, we didn't have a life on weekends for a good 2 or 3 years. It was just constant Nevermore every weekend, 2 or 3 shows. It was just non-stop, never ending. I mean, I loved it. Like, part of me loved it, but like I still wanted a life. But it was just like, this is magical. I know this is gonna be a time in my life I'm gonna reflect upon and go like, fuck, I was part of that. You know,
you were part of that, dude.
I was part of that, but it was still hard work. You know, it was still hard work.
Sure.
But K&B, they made the first like 15 noses, I believe, and then eventually they decided to extend the show, and they don't want to make any more noses because it's a lot of work. So they eventually were able to give Stuart the nose, and then Stu hired me to start making the noses. So from after the first 15 shows, I started making all the prosthetics. So that was pretty cool too.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so how did you, now let's sort of dip back a little bit. How did you get into special effects, makeup artistry? Because I mean, you really are something else with like that. You all the stuff you sculpt and the stuff you create.